Hey, hey, hey. So, welcome back to Jadana Live. I was going to say super happy and excited to be with you all today. Is that true, though? No offense. Um, I am happy to be here. Yeah, I'm happy to be chatting today. Uh, Tired lately. It is somehow 85 in Indiana. I know I always talk about the weather, but the weather means a lot to me, and I typically love the summer, but now I'm like waiting for it to be uh fall, real fall again. So, in the meantime, here we are. But thank you all for returning back to Chidana Live. I had a great guest on last week or 2 weeks ago, my bestie Bailey, to talk about the fall and transitioning there. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, I love to do the show bi-weekly. And the goal is really to kind of connect with the community better, to understand myself better and the world around me. I tried to have the vibe of this be way less of like I'm teaching and more so like we're all learning together, sharing thoughts that I have on my mind, and that when I do have segments where I kind of share what's on my mind, I call that the mini moment segment. And today we have a fun mini moment segment going on. And I'm just going to jump right into it. So, I have been thinking a lot about social media lately, particularly because we'll kind of get into that. So, as you can see by this title, I'm leaving social media, and I am chatting with you all now to kind of give you some context as to why that is. And yeah, so I'm leaving, not entirely, but partially. My accounts will remain active, but I won't be posting or like lurking at anyone's pages through my account anyway. And the platforms I'm active on the most currently are TikTok and Instagram. So those will be where I leave. I deleted my Facebook years ago. And while I am still on LinkedIn, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with that and what I want it to look like. Um, Excuse me, because I don't feel like that's necessary or super beneficial to my life either lately, but that's another story. So, as I record this episode, fall of 2025, I'm still in the midst of like strategizing how I'm going to go about everything I'm getting ready to say to you. So, like I said, work in progress pod, kind of like sharing as I think, as I process. Knowing that, just understand that like some of what I'm saying could change or look different than maybe what I said because I'm still trying to kind of figure this out as I go. So, by the time some of you listen to this, though, I will likely no longer be active on social media. And so this episode kind of serves as like a bit of an explanation as to why, if you're curious or if you're wondering. And yeah, so let's kind of jump into the why here. So whenever I'm talking to friends and my family about social media, I typically just say, it's not for me. And then I'm always also like, what do you mean by that? Or like, some people are like, well, duh, it's not, who's it optimal for, whatever. But for me, I have just noticed it doesn't benefit my life more than I feel like it kind of distracts from it. Personally, when I think about Instagram specifically, like I really like seeing what my friends and family are up to sometimes. Like I can react to things I wouldn't know otherwise, and I can keep in touch with people I'm unlikely to call or to text just because we may not be super close, but you still have like, oh, a person you met at like a party years ago that you were a kindred spirit with, or someone you went to high school with who just had good vibes, but like you're not like friends. I really do love those interactions for Instagram. And not just that, but keeping in touch with famous people. I love pop culture, so famous people and like brands that I follow, and seeing when they have interesting like drops or cool visuals, or even more localized vendors or restaurants, or let's say like pop-ups that only show their details of like time changes, etc. on Instagram. That I will miss because that, I mean, my husband will still have an Instagram, so we'll likely still be like, hey, is the farmer's market, did they change their time? Is it raining outside or whatever? I will still use it for that. Um, but again, not on my account, baby. Uh, so yeah, TikTok on the other hand, TikTok is my favorite. TikTok is my favorite. And I love talking to Instagram users who don't have TikTok about TikTok because they're just like, everyone's obsessed with it. Yeah, because it rocks. It's better than Instagram, motherfucker. Why? Okay, I learned so much on TikTok. Not just how to grate your cheese differently if you flip the grater around in a way you didn't realize. Not just that, but also like social and political issues. I feel like TikTok really helps me see life more fully and connects me to people who are doing amazing work. I've got someone coming on the pod soon, or by the time you've listened to this, who's already been on, who I connected with through TikTok. So it's like you meet a lot of cool people doing a lot of cool stuff, and I find a lot of new artists there, specifically with music. A dude named Monrovia, I love him. He does like kind of like alt soft rock. I don't know. Dope dude. You should listen to him. But like I find a lot of artists on there. Um and I really do feel like it makes me a more well-rounded person, which I'm obsessed with being. I like to know a little bit about a ton of things, and TikTok just kind of helps me be able to still do that. So I don't know. I won't only just miss what I said, but also like the dance trends. If you know, you know. I'll miss it. I'll miss it. I it really keeps me in the know. This is a side note. But the other day, I was walking like with my kid and my husband on a walk, and my son just all of a sudden goes, "I'm talking about in it." And I was like, "What?" So anyway, this has been a trend. It's currently a trend, and it's from a song. If you know, you know. If you don't, you probably don't have TikTok. Or you're listening to this, and that trend has totally passed by, because that also happens. Something's really popular for like a week, and then it's gone. But all that to say, that is how much I watch TikTok, to the point where my kid is reciting a trend to me that I never even know he knew and or heard. And it's, I'll spare the next line for you, but well, I'll just say it. And if he want the cat, he gotta spend it. That's the next line that fortunately my kid did not pick up on. But as you can see, I learned a lot of trends there. So all that to say, I will miss the trends that keep me belly laughing until 10 p.m. on a weeknight when I should be sleeping. But and recipes. Oh my god, teeny. Ugh, they're just so. Oh, and that's the other thing I didn't mention. Yes, on Instagram, I do follow some like influencers. TikTok is where I follow like almost exclusively people I don't know. I follow some people I know, but mostly like most of my friends and family aren't active on TikTok. It's mostly people who I am just discovering. So that will be sad. Um In 2020, I love social media, so it's not like I've never done this before, and that's why I feel fine doing it again. So after George Floyd was murdered by a disgusting cop, um, and social media was like overwhelming because everyone was posting their thoughts and opinions and blah blah blah. Uh, I started getting so many messages and comments from white people during that time. I grew up in a mostly white school in a mostly white state, and so I just had so many of the people who, honestly, not even people I was friends with, yeah, I'd say mostly, uh, I'd say a tiny percentage of people I was friends with, but mostly people who just kind of like knew me and I was the only black person in their close vicinity that they felt like they could ask inappropriate questions to. And I I was just trying to process what was happening in the first place, let alone getting all of the like questions and whatever I was getting from people. And so around that time, in addition to feeling overwhelmed, I vividly remember recording a video of me singing the Black spiritual We Shall Overcome. So good. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, oh, I still believe that we shall overcome someday. Anyway, if you haven't heard it before, now you have. Love that song. But I decided to record myself singing that, crying. You know, it was genuine in the moment, but in hindsight, it's like hella cringe. um, yeah. So, and I remember getting like comments and likes on that when that wasn't why I posted that. I was more so posting it because that's just kind of how I felt in that moment. And I just wasn't comfortable with the engagement I was getting from that. It's hard to explain. I felt like the people who were engaging with that the most at the time didn't even understand where it was coming from. Um, and were sympathizing with me, but just couldn't understand. And I didn't want to be that vulnerable in a context where I felt like I was unable to truly be understood. So that was then. I know that's a very specific scenario, but it was then around that time that I decided to leave Instagram because I was like, what is this really doing for me? And I think it was those kind of engagements, just like the accessibility, that made me feel uncomfortable. The accessibility without the sensitivity. And I decided to leave Instagram. I didn't have TikTok at that time. And I also decided to delete my Facebook. So this was kind of a while ago when I felt like Facebook was relevant. Side note, I'm always shocked when I talk to people who are still on Facebook. I assumed like grandparents were on there and that no one else was. Literally no joke. Had no idea people my age were still on it. So learn from that. So again, I was all social from 2020 to, I want to say maybe like 2023 is when I got a TikTok. And then just at the top of this year is when I got an Instagram again. I'm only laughing because it's like, of course I just got it this year and I'm leaving. Excuse me. If anything, I'm consistent. Like I go to things, I did, you know, all of it, whatever. So I forget the exact dates. But the funniest part about when I decided to delete my Instagram is that was, I think, what I can't remember like if it was a year after I'd moved to LA or like a handful of months after I moved to LA. But it was after I moved to LA and right around the time I was doing like really different stuff than I had been doing before that would have probably been really interesting to people following me is like when I deleted my account. And part of that feels pretty badass because I didn't care. Like, you don't need to see me going to Channel Islands and hanging out in Vegas and going to Zion and camping in Joshua Tree. Like, yeah, it was dope and I did it and no one will ever know except for if they follow my husband. But that was always just funny to me. That's when I actually did really cool stuff and had my first kid and had, nothing on my accounts to show for it. So I just realized when I did have my social media, or I'm sorry, when I didn't have it, I was doing so much more. I was doing, like, as you just heard, all those things, like, I was doing stuff. I wasn't just scrolling or planning or thinking about it. And I'm not saying that's what everyone with, really engaged in social media does, but that's what I do when I'm really engaged with social media. Um, it's hard for me to have like split brain. I'm like fully places or I'm not. And so I previously slash I feel like my whole life I've struggled with like doing like action, especially out of the house. And just because I can get a little like daunted, like, well, when and what time and where and how, like, and I have a lot of ideas, don't always know exactly how I want to tackle them. And it could be as small as planning like a camping trip, biking to local areas. Like it can just get pretty daunting sometimes. And so I noticed it was easier for me to stay in my comfort zone when I was on social. And this is so sad, but because of the sheer amount of time I spent on it after work, after I wake up, before I'm making a meal, like just kind of scrolling instead of planning like what thing I'm going to do next, what thing I'm going to create next, what I'm going to work on next, and really just kind of wasting that time. Um, so when I was off social media for, those years, I noticed I was on my phone way less. I wasn't shocked, but I just didn't anticipate having such little need for my phone because it's like when you're on social, you're kind of addicted to it. But I probably touched my phone like 5 times a day or something when I was off social because, cell phones were made to communicate with people you're not around and don't see when you need to, not to just like use them at any waking moment. And so, unless I was looking at a recipe or like looking up something on, Chrome, or was talking to someone on the phone or texting someone, I just wasn't on my phone. And I actually had to end up turning the sound on really loudly because I was missing calls and texts all the time, just to make sure I heard it because that's how little I was around it. And so, yeah, like I said, it just wasn't for me. And this, as you know, based on the dates, like I said, was around like 2020. This overlapped with COVID time. So it's a little confusing sometimes to know what was specific to being off social media versus what was very specific to that time in general, where a lot of us were kind of looking inward and connecting with ourselves more and doing some of that. But what was specific to not having social, as I kind of reflect on that, was just like thinking more than I was doing. And that overall theme of just like doing. And that's what I want to get back to. Um, More books. I love making collages and like biking, various exercising. I love like cooking and just being more in my physical body, my physical mind, and just being aware of my own mind and what thoughts were actually mine versus thoughts that were on my mind because of the collective mind that I was constantly tuning into on social media. Uh, and that's what we do, whether we realize it or not, when we're constantly going to our phone in these in between times, we're like just becoming more and more aware of what other people are more aware of. And we're all kind of realizing that we're aware of similar things depending on our algorithms, and we're kind of being managed subconsciously by this non-physical world that we're not even inputting as much as we're consuming, which is fascinating to me and part of why I personally didn't want that anymore. I know I'm a great, solid, deep thinker that can come up with my own ideas, thoughts, strategies, goals, and I don't need anyone to put that out for me. Like I'm kind of insulted by um the perpetulance, is that a word? Perpetuity of that mindset. And so so my whole life I've had dreams that have come to life somehow. Um, or dreams that were reflective of something that was like happening in reality that I would have no idea was occurring. And I liked the idea of having dreams again that were inspired by what I was looking at on social media. So yes, I do still watch like a decent amount of TV. But for some reason, TV, because it's so focused, doesn't affect me the way that social media does. Because with TV, it's like I'm focusing on one show. Social media, I'm scrolling to thing after thing after thing. So it's just a little bit different. So, anyways, my dreams. So, because throughout life, I've had dreams that have like come true or have ended up having some real application to my life, there would be times I would dream of like a person or something when I was active on social media, and I was like, oh, I had that dream because I literally was scrolling and I saw that person or that brand popped up. Which again can happen with TV, but I'm more so speaking to like people I know and having dreams about. Whoops, it's my sister. What up? People I know and having dreams about them. And when I was off social media, during COVID, and I had dreams, and it was like of someone I know, but someone I hadn't seen in forever, and I didn't have social, so I knew it wasn't because I like just scrolled by their cousin's graduation party or something. I would be like, oh, like I would just take my thought of them more seriously, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I hope they're doing well. Like, I hope they're doing okay. And so that's what I want to get back to too. Like, again, just an overall awareness and connectedness to myself. And for me, that also comes through dreaming, which is fun and interesting. And I don't think I've talked about that on here. And I'm going to say it to my life just in general, where I don't know exactly where my career is headed, what this podcast will lead to. But I do know I haven't been reading, meditating, and doing my consistent affirmations practice like I historically do. And part of that, yes, is the stage of life I'm in, with so much going on. But I know the other part is just not controlling where my mind is spending its time. And I read 2 books back in the time. Of course, I was on social media in 2023. Still in Focus by Johann and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Both amazing books that I recommend. And they both encourage the importance of paying attention to what you're paying attention to instead of being guided by others' intentions and marketing. I always pause commercials. I always pause commercials and I try not to look because I'm like, if I am hungry and Culver's is in my mind because I love Culver's, sure, I'll go. I don't want to go because I've seen 10 commercials and heard 1,000 ads on my podcast and because it's in my subconscious mind that I need Culver. That's not why I want to go. I don't like the idea of that. And so, sure, you can't catch everything, obviously, but as much as I can be aware of, I'm trying to kind of capture. And so I know I can keep track of that better when I'm off social media. My brain personally defaults to sitting and scrolling, and my body just kind of follows. And so I've also had friends who are like, well, just go on social on the weekend or only after work. Or like one of my friends has a brick, the other person has like the time. Like you've timed out of it or whatever. That stuff doesn't work for me because like I know I can just bypass it. And so for me, it's just easier for stuff to disappear. And so I was talking to my mentor about this for the podcast and everything. And she did challenge my approach to my social media absence and kind of thinking about it a little differently than how I was initially going to. My idea first was to just go off of it completely. I was going to delete my accounts. I was going to fully disappear. And I love the idea of fully disappearing. I don't know, there's just something sexy about it. But after chatting and kind of understand where she was coming from, we both decided for my podcast that it may be good to keep my accounts live, keep my handle live, but just to not update my accounts. I'm gonna go, Zenzaya on them, where I'll have a couple posts pinned. I'll have like who I am, who the podcast is. My website will always be active and up to date. My YouTube will be active and up to date. And then I'll have this episode explaining why I'm not active on social. So these will all be pinned. So I just won't have the apps on my phone. Like I'm not going to be updating anything. I'm not going to be posting anything. Nothing about new episodes on Instagram or TikTok. No. No, I will not be doing any of that. But if someone were to find me and was just curious and like Googles what's going on, they can at least see why I'm not on and then be redirected to other stuff that I'm doing, which is fun. And so yeah, I'll likely keep all my Instagram or keep the 3 pinned posts on my Instagram, and then I'll probably delete everything off my Instagram that's not specifically podcast related. For my TikTok, I'm just gonna keep all my videos, but we'll make it clear, like in my bio, I'm not active here, whatever. And I just know I'm in a transformational. I'm in a transformation. And I just want to make sure. Just kidding. But yeah, I feel like I'm in a transformative kind of stage. And trying to pay attention to what really needs to stay, what needs to go, trying to act accordingly. And I've said this on the podcast before, but what works for others may not work for me. And shouldn't that be how life is? Another reason I want to get all social, because, oh my gosh, the 10 ways I like, dope. I don't want to subconsciously be like, oh, if that worked for them, I should try it. Like, is what I'm doing working for me? Am I optimizing what I'm doing before I try a method that worked for someone else? Just thoughts like that. And for me, I want to be as present as I can, enjoy life as much as I can. And for me, I do that best in the physical world. I also think so much about how much griping and complaining people do about social media. And I remember, like, social media is fake. It's only as real as you make. And I know in 2025, it's like, okay, Jadonna, but literally it's true. If you don't want it to have that much of a significance in your life, I'm not talking about the collective, I'm talking about you, then don't engage the same way, or like engage in it in a way like what I'm going to do that works for you, it works for me. Don't put all your energy into perpetuating this fake world that then AI is just going to pick up and use against you. Another pod for another time. But yeah, I don't know, it doesn't even need to go like, I don't need to go down those rabbit holes, but just the overall thought of doing what works for you and utilizing what works for you is best for you. And I love the idea of not being mastered by anything. People, no. Technology, no. Anything, no. I want to be my own. I don't even know where I was going with that, but who doesn't love a little ditty? So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Well, hope you guys are well in the meantime, or listening if you're not watching. In the meantime, maybe do try to watch. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jadonna_live. Jadonna live. And in the meantime, take it easy, breathe deeply, and keep doing what you do. I will catch you next time. Same place, same vibe. Bye.